Ron Holland still has a chance to be a top 3 draft pick. This is Floor and Ceiling. Let's break them down. Ron Holland's quick development, particularly when it comes to creating for himself, is what stands out to me the most. Prior to joining the G League Ignite, Holland was known at other levels for his motor and his athletic play finishing. But it's with the Ignite where Holland has started to shape up into more of an all-rounded wing with more scoring upside than it once seemed. Holland is now definitely more of a 3 or maybe a 2 who can operate off the dribble into pull-up jumpers or drives to the rim. He'll only just have turned 19 when the draft rolls around, and there aren't too many prospects that age who might have legit gravity off the bounce, the athleticism and the motor to affect plays in the paint, and then the constant upward trajectory. The two sides of the coin with Holland are shown through his scoring. He averaged 19.5 points for the season, but on 24% from 3 and 46% from the field. So the G League Ignite wing was productive, but not in a sustainable way. Still, we also have to consider that Holland's development in the G League was sort of similar to Jaden Hardy's. He was allowed almost total liberty to grow as a creator and as a ball handler and to turn the rock over or make poor decisions. This might end up being good for his long-term growth, but it's also not going to be Holland's NBA role for now, and it hasn't directly helped his draft stock. Like Hardy though, I can see Holland outgrowing his draft position if he continues to show that these glimpses and flashes of shooting and driving are actually grounded in something. However, there are very clear concerns about how Holland sees the game. I've heard people call Holland selfish, and I don't think it's that, because he does have some determination and willingness to pass. It's more so that his vision of the floor is extremely limited. Up until this season, Holland hadn't really been used as a ball-handling, creative wing, so for most of the season, he was very raw operating in that role. To simplify his previous experience, Holland was very much more of an energy guy rather than a primary initiator. This has led to some ugly decisions, and Holland's more than 3 turnovers a game is definitely disappointing. His efficiency, as we touched on, also has a lot of room for growth. He is not going to be given such total freedom in a more contained NBA setting, which is what's best for Holland. After all, at this stage, 28% usage was just excessive for an 18-year-old playing in his first professional season. In the big picture, Holland needs to get much better than 24% from the perimeter. Even if his role ends up a lot more narrow down the line, Holland will need to make threes regardless. At this juncture, I don't think that Holland is a non-shooter, but he's definitely not a natural. Many times, you'll see how he hesitates to take a wide open jumper, and instead, he'll take an extra jab step or dribble before rising into his 3. Even if he's not making them consistently, Holland needs to let those shots fly. He needs to make quicker decisions as a whole to not affect the flow of his team and force defenses to rotate on him. In general, this is a big part of why it's been a frustrating experience to watch the Ignite wing. Holland struggles to read defenses past the first level, and his process had been generally slow to develop until some late progress. Holland is guilty of playing in a rush at only 1 speed, and he's just not as physical as I thought he might be going into the season. Holland has burst, but he tries to avoid contact and he doesn't have enough strength to move defenders out of the way. His touch is already limited, so combine that with not being able to get to his spots, and that is an issue. Holland can still be effective and probably more efficient, playing much more off the ball. As we've been seeing, Holland's decision-making on the ball can still be shaky, so it's a good idea, at least at first, to scale down the decisions that he has to make. The hope is that Holland will continue to get those ball handling reps in the Summer League and in the G League initially, but that his first valuable NBA minutes come more so on complementary touches. All of this will include attacking off the catch, in transition, cutting, and generally leveraging his athleticism off the ball. Holland is acrobatic with his finishes, and he's explosive in the paint. He has a nice first step, and he can definitely throw down some big dunks. I've also found it intriguing when the Ignite has tapped into Holland as more of a screener. This is most certainly a way to leverage his athleticism going to the basket, and also a way to avoid Holland's shaky shooting if he's quick and strong in the paint. In much less of a ball-dominant role, Holland should find it easier to affect the half-court game as a cutter and to simplify, but also make his decisions more efficient. Of course, all of this is also going to mean raising his percentage from 3. I can't stress it enough, but 24% is nowhere near good enough. Holland was better from the free throw line, and he can clean up his shot and aggression level off the catch. But given that the Ignite prospect has a sort of skinny looking, lower pushing shot, this will likely be a progress. Still, I think Holland should get away with this for now, as long as he's taking the right threes, he shows a willingness to shoot, and he keeps his percentage in at least the low 30s on respectable volume. The quick pace of the NBA is going to benefit how he can play in transition, where Holland is a very good, although not elite, athlete, but this can offset his lack of jump shooting. Holland can really explode in space, and he's going to throw down some thunderous dunks in the open court. The 18-year-old has great top-end speed with long steps that is tough to contain when combined with some of his wiggle and changes of direction. Holland is twitchy and electrifying in the open court, but we should also consider that his current context in the G League lends itself a lot to these possessions in transition. Holland can also playmake a little bit in these situations, and even though he had 93 turnovers in 29 games, he also did finish the year averaging about 3 assists per game. That is worth giving some credit, but ultimately I think Holland profiles as someone who can connect situations in transition or kick the ball out to the perimeter after putting pressure on the paint. Given how he racks up paint touches with his burst and butting handle, Holland should always have some potential creating for others. Broadly speaking, it's pretty good that he's already gotten some reps creating with the ball in his hands. If we consider his floor and his ceiling, those were eventually necessary to see if Holland's best case outcome as an athletic wing who can also create off the dribble was possible. I expect that Holland will continue to get these reps in some setting over his first few seasons in the league to see how he can really flesh out. But otherwise, it's not that steep of a change to go back to being more of a niche, energy-setting wing whose main value comes off the ball and from his defense. We'll dive into that, but right now and going forward, Holland lacks nuance as a decision maker. I know that he can fill the lane in transition, but I'm zoning in on whether he continues to make these sorts of pick and roll reads. These are tougher ideas to execute, and Holland has not always shown accuracy or even the ability to get to his spot while in control of his dribble. It's been a mixed, somewhat frustrating season on defense for Ron Holland. Let's start with the good, which is that a super young wing with a great motor and solid, although not incredible measurements, looks like he'll be a somewhat switchable defender with real flashes already. In the G League, Holland averaged a bit over 3 steals and blocks combined per game. In 29 games, he had 66 steals, so that definitely showcases something on this end. At his best, Holland walls off drives with his chest, and he intensely uses his 6'10" wingspan to alter plays. Keep in mind, the Ignite wing will only be 19 on draft day, so there's plenty of time for him to keep getting stronger, which is what he really needs to do. Holland projects as a strong on-ball defender on 3s and some 2s and some 4s. Over the course of his career, we've seen Holland tried across positions from ball handlers to off-ball players. When he's effective and making multiple efforts with active hands, it's not easy to beat him off the bounce. This overall idea with his length applies just as much off the ball, where I think Holland should have real talent making defensive plays. Right now, the G League prospect can already be real disruptive with his length, but I like when he combines his motor and activity to really anticipate plays. In the NBA, I want to see Holland continue to get steals and blocks coming in as the low man or rotating in to show help. He definitely has the tools to do these things more often, but this is also why Holland has seen his stock fall a little bit. He was billed as a defense-first prospect coming into the cycle, and his stats look good on paper, but I feel like they're much more based on volume than what's actually reflected on the court. In reality, I was disappointed with how often Holland just fell asleep off the ball. He would give up cuts or rebounds, and this happened way too many times. Sure, the Ignite wing is very young, and he showed some improvements as the season went on, but by and large, he was really undisciplined. What we saw for most of the year was a version of Holland who missed reads, was late reading the game, and did not produce in a winning way. Even when he did make the right rotation, he often ended up being late, jumpy, or rash collecting a foul. It's in this last area where Holland has had some problems. He finished the season averaging about 5 fouls per 100 possessions. Holland can be too handsy, and he collects calls in a way that can often be avoidable. The Ignite prospect picks up touch fouls, swipes in when he's frustrated, and he sort of lets himself get beat by the moment of the game. In general, Holland definitely has the means to not only be solid, but be a very good defender both on and off the ball. He's got an explosive first step with some length and anticipation, decent positional size and length, activity to some extent, and definitely lots of potential to be tapped into. Eventually, I think he'll be switchable 2 through 4, but I want to see all of this be condensed a lot more, because Holland is guilty of playing at one speed, being overreactive, foul prone, and these same ideas that show up on defense are also apparent on offense down the other end.
As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a comment telling me what you think, and if you enjoy the channel, if you want to watch more content like this, make sure to subscribe. Take care, and I'll catch you guys next time.